Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is February 21st. Cole Ragans and Geraldo Perdomo get extensions, and spring training baseball is back. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Baseball is back. That is the most important sentence I could be saying right now. How lovely it is to be back in the game of baseball, watching some baseball. This is what we've been waiting for, and it's been very exciting to see things so far. Just off of recording, Yankees are already up 2-0 over the Rays. You know, we got the World Baseball qualifiers underway as well. It's been a lot of fun being able to, be at home, turn on the TV, and not have to struggle to find something to watch because there's baseball to watch, and how sweet that is. So we're going to dive right on in here, talk about some of the news here. This is essentially our last kind of off-season discussion, I guess I could, is that the word I'm going to choose? Because next week we're actually starting our divisional episodes. We got 6 of those to do, and that leads up to the 18th and 19th. That is the Tokyo series. That's our first bit of regular season baseball, which we talk about on the 21st, and then that gets us to our predictions on the 24th, and then opening day on the 27th. That's the way the month of March looks. So if you're listening to this and you're excited to hear about a specific team or a specific division, let me know in the comments. You could, I don't use the Twitter much, but we do have a middle of the order Twitter or Instagram as well. And that way I can know which division to start it off with. I'm probably just going to spin a wheel and pick it regardless. But, if there's a division that there's a consensus to start with, then I'll start with that one. But for now, I'll probably just choose one of the 6 randomly, and we'll get that underway. But that's exciting for us to start doing those coming up. So with that all being said, let's move on and talk about some of the baseball news, should I say, because we've got some of it. Starting off with some extension talk. That's right, we're talking about Cole Ragans of your Kansas City Royals and Geraldo Perdomo of your Arizona Diamondbacks. So, of course, in case you missed it, Cole Ragans and Perdomo were both extended this week. Ragans got extended with the Royals. It's a 3-year deal worth $13.25 million, and then Geraldo Perdomo signs a 4-year extension with the Diamondbacks. This is a 4-year deal for $45 million with a club option of $15 million for 2030. Looking at stat lines, Cole Ragans has been fantastic since coming over from Texas. Of course, he was the player that got sent to Kansas City in exchange for Aroldis Chapman that joined that Texas 2023 World Series team. And Cole Ragans has been great since making his way over. In his year and a half stint with the Royals, he's been kind of untouchable. He's got a 3.46, that is overall. He's got a 3 ERA with the Royals, a 16-11 win-loss record. He's already accumulated 7.5 WAR with the Royals. He's played 44 games, and he's done great. Got 312 strikeouts. He's only given up 18 home runs. He's pitched 258 innings. And he was an all-star for the first time last year at the age of 26, and he finished 4th in Cy Young voting, so just missing out on that top 3, but he has been fantastic. And he's kind of been that ace of that Royals staff. They got into the postseason last year, and although there are still, key additions and moves being made in the Kansas City Royals, he is still the ace of that staff, and has a backup of Seth Lugo and Waka and Lorenzen. Like it's a nice staff that they've created, and he definitely headlines it. Strong lefty, he's a prominent figure on the mound. And if you're listening to this as the casual baseball fan, you're like, well, hang on, if he's this good, how come they only got $13.25 million? It's because he's still on those lower years before even entering his arbitration numbers, which is why that extension is so low. It's low, but it is high for an extension of this caliber. because this is taking up his last year of pre-arb and then his first 2 years of arbitration. So he's going to make 4.5 next year and 7.5 the following year. And then he still has that third year of arbitration with the Royals. So even though it's a 3-year extension, he is still going to be on Kansas City's team until at least 2028, unless traded or something, or unless the Royals decide to cut him if he falls off hard and then they release him or something. Regardless, he's going to be around for a while, and he's earned it so far. Top 4 in Cy Young voting is rather impressive for Cole Ragans. So big ups him. He's a great pitcher. Love seeing him. And then the other extension, Geraldo Perdomo. He was an all-star a couple years ago, back in 2023. Last year, he had a decent year offensively. Some would say even better than his all-star year, but wasn't an all-star last year. Not a home run hitter, but he hits. He had 100 hits in 2023. He had 92 last year. He had a 273 batting average, a 718 OPS. He gets on base. He can steal a couple bags for you. And a decent glove out there. I'm not sure if he's going to win any gold gloves or anything, but he plays a solid defense. He's a solid hitter, a solid guy in the lineup, a good clubhouse guy, good energy. Overall, just a pretty solid player that you want to keep around. And I think his extension is worthy of it. He made his debut in 2021, only got into 11 games there, but looked okay. 2022, it looked like he would have been a bust because his hitting numbers were so atrociously bad. He had 500 plate appearances, and his batting average was 195. But then last 2 years, his hitting has kind of turned it around a little bit to the point of, he gets on base, he'll score a couple of runs. He's not going to drive in crazy numbers. He's not hitting the ball out of the park. Of course, Arizona's ballpark is not the best for hitting home runs. In the last 2 years, he only has 9 home runs. He has 14 career home runs, so he's not hitting any major home runs during the regular season. He had a clutch one, actually, in 2023, I believe, unless I'm thinking of somebody else, but I believe he was part of that. He's another solid player, good shortstop, and for the Diamondbacks, their roster is constructed of a lot of young talent and a lot of guys that they've built up. I believe a couple of years ago, there was a deal that would have sent, I believe, John Jay from the Royals to Arizona in exchange for Perdomo. But somebody in Arizona's higher up said, no, we like this guy, we want to keep this guy. And they ended up keeping him, and it kind of works out for him because now they've had 4 seasons with him, and, 3 of them have been pretty decent. And now you've got at least 4 more. Of course, that club option as well, depending on how well his offensive numbers go. But, you've got an exciting team here. Of course, Corbin Carroll, Rookie of the Year winner. And, coming off a sophomore slump kind of. But he turned it on a little bit in the later, half of the month after the All-Star break. And he's going to be up there leading things off. You got Ketel Marte, who's been a switch hitter stud, for a few years now. They traded, they lost Christian Walker. They've traded for Josh Naylor. They have Lourdes. They have Jake McCarthy, who's had a nice season. Eugenio Suarez kind of turned it around from his days with Seattle. They've got a nice lineup, and the pitching staff is elite. Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. What can Eduardo Rodriguez give you? What does Brandon Pfaadt give you? What does Jordan Montgomery give you? Those are questionable marks. And then, of course, that bullpen, they brought in Kendall Graveman. They've got Ryan Thompson and Kevin Ginkel and A.J. Puck. No more Paul Sewald, but, with Puck, he's just as good. So Arizona's going to have a very interesting year. I'm really interested with how the NL divisions are going to go because obviously, you have these predominant top-heavy favorites in the Dodgers, and I guess the Braves still are the favorites in the NL East. I don't know. Is it the Phillies? Is it the Mets? The Padres are good. The Diamondbacks are good. Where did the Giants fall in all this? The NL East and the NL West are really fun divisions. Then you have the NL Central, which is they're super fun. The Reds are a fun team. The Pirates are a fun team. They have this young talent, but they can't string it together. I think that division will come down to Cubs and Brewers, and I think the wild cards will fall into the East and the West. But only the season will tell. It's exciting to see that we're getting into the season talk, and I have to start thinking of predictions and everything. But Yeah, Diamondbacks are going to be a fun team, I think, this year, and hopefully they can find their way back to the postseason. They were in the World Series in 2023 and then missed it by a game last year. So I think they have a real shot at making it back to the postseason, and who knows how far they can go once they get in there. So Arizona, watch out for them. Perdomo, 4-year extension. Cole Ragans, 3-year extension. And let's move on to something that I thought was very exciting to see this morning, and that was a message here. I'm going to read you the statement from Yankees managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner. And this is a kind of big thing for me. I kind of like this, but let me know your thoughts. This is about the Yankees' facial hair policy. So, this is Hal Steinbrenner's statement. In recent weeks, I have spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees spanning several eras to elect their perspectives on our long-standing facial hair and grooming policy, and I appreciate their earnest and varied feedback. These most recent conversations are an extension of ongoing internal dialogue that dates back several years. Ultimately, the final decision rests with me, and after great consideration, we will be amending our expectations to allow our players and uniformed personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. It is an appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy. And that is the statement. And this is a big thing for me because I very dislike this policy from the Yankees because I think it's, facial hair in general, like it is part of a person, I guess, but like there's two sides to it because obviously it's the history and the way things have been brought up and raised, and you have Yankees legends, like guys and even like not even legends, but like just players from the Yankees who were such a big impact onto that team. I'm thinking of Brett Gardner, like someone who's not going to make the Hall of Fame by any means, but he was a solid player with the Yankees. But then I think of guys who have come over and, who have had to change their way of knowing the game of baseball and have struggled. I'm thinking more recently, so like guys like Joey Gallo and Josh Donaldson, and they didn't really have beards at the time, but, Donaldson did, and I think Gallo did as well, so maybe that's a bad example, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's that lack of confidence, I guess, and like lack of, I don't know. There's something about it that always just seemed off. Whenever I like look at rosters and I see like all these guys and they have like personality in a way, like when I look at other teams, and then I pull up the Yankees roster and it just kind of all looks the same. But this is big for me, and I mean, unfortunately, Devin Williams had to already shave his beard because he could have, trimmed it up a little bit. I'm sure, there's still limits to their policy, but the fact of the matter is that a well-trimmed, groomed beard will be allowed by Yankees. And this is kind of fun because I've been kind of just staring at the Yankees rosters and I'm thinking like, oh, who's going to have... who's going to go out for these beards? Like Goldschmidt, maybe he brings his back a little bit. Maybe Bellinger gets a little something. Stroman. Like, I don't know. I think it'll be fun. Obviously, I'm sure like Rodon might still keep his mustache. I don't think he's doing anything with that. But it'll be interesting to see which kind of players will end up having beards and which ones won't. Obviously, photo day photos have already started surfacing. And seeing Gleyber Torres with a beard is absolutely insane to me because obviously I've only seen him as a Yankee and I've only seen him, clean shaven. But the fact that this guy's got a beard, and I remember Gary Sanchez when he had a beard. Like guys, when they leave the Yankees and then grow out these like huge beards, I'm thinking like, how did you keep up with this throughout a full season? Because like I would have never have thought, and like you never see it. But it's really fun, and I'm excited to see which kind of Yankees players take advantage of this. Devin Williams, I'm assuming, might start building his back up a little bit. So exciting to see what this will look like and see which players will have some facial hair for opening day and going forward. But yeah, this is a very exciting thing for me. Big ups for the Yankees. I'm sure. I'm curious of what their fans are about because obviously, like, when you have history like that, you obviously want to maintain it as much as you can. So I'm assuming there are people who are upset about this. As any decision goes in life, whenever someone makes a decision or says something, there's always going to be different opinions, people loving it, people hating it. But I'm interested to see what the perspective is there because obviously, like, the history is important to fans, I guess, and that would be what the debate is. But I'm all for it. I'm excited to see the players here, but that's my take. Moving on here, let's talk about spring training because, as aforementioned, we are back in spring training baseball. We're here. And we got a couple of baseball games in the belt already. So yesterday, we had the Cubs and Dodgers play the first spring training game. We also had some of the World Baseball qualifier. We had South Africa take on Nicaragua. And Nicaragua actually walked it off in the 10th inning to earn themselves a win. And then this morning, Spain and Chinese Tapia played, and Spain took over this game at 1 point, leading by 10. It was a brutal beatdown. 12-5, Spain won. So later tonight, actually, for Eastern Standard Time, 11 p.m., Spain and Nicaragua play, and that would be for one of these teams to go 2-0, which would be very exciting. So definitely going to want to watch that game later. And as for mentioned, we had some spring training games today. You know, Huskies and Red Sox are playing, Rays and Yankees, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Rangers, Royals, some other stuff. You know, Tony Gonsolin on the mound for the Dodgers later today was going to be a good one. But, yeah, taking a look at yesterday's spring training game, just want to throw out some of the little tidbits in case you missed it. The automatic balls and strike system, the ABS, was used pretty much right away in the first inning, and it looks good. And I really want this in major leagues next year. Of course, it won't be this year, but to try to get out in spring, I think the players are going to love it, whether you're a batter or a pitcher or a catcher. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited for more and more teams to start trying the system out and seeing how they like it and seeing how it works. But as for a fan watching the game, it was quick. It still kept up with the pace. It changed the call and got it right. So everything about it was great. Loved it. Eddie Rosario hit a home run for the Dodgers. Kind of looked like a 2021 Braves Eddie Rosario in that postseason run. So that was fun. And then scary thing actually in the game as well. Bobby Miller was drilled in the face at 106 miles an hour. He seemed okay though. He was on a knee. He got up and walked off on his own. Of course, he was taken out of the game after that. And he posted something on Twitter saying how, thankful he was that he's okay and he's excited to get back on the mound. So I don't think he's going to miss too much time by the sounds of it, but I'm sure the Dodgers are going to, go through concussion protocol probably and just kind of maintain it, make sure he's good to go. They have plenty of depth, but Bobby Miller's been that young talent that they've been trying to develop and try to get to the major league level at a consistent pace. And obviously that one was a scary moment, but, hoping for a good recovery if he needs any. And I believe he is okay, though. But it was scary. I was watching that game live, so it was like, wow, first game and we have something that serious. So, he's okay, thankfully. And obviously, Cubs won. Good for Dodgers unbeatable. Please, watch this. Cubs 12-4. Bam. I love the guys that are on Instagram and Twitter being like, oh, I thought this team was supposed to go 162-0. Like, they can't even beat the Cubs in spring training. Like, it is spring training, guys. It is just practice, and it's more about the players getting ready rather than team success. That's how I look at spring training. But it is fun seeing people get worked up over a spring training game. Anyways, moving on. Still talking about spring training, but at a different level here. I want to talk about some of the position changes that have been, being talked about on MLB Network and all these guys that I've seen videos for doing things and playing positions that don't make much sense. And I mean, sometimes I wonder what the decisions go into and why certain decisions get made. This kind of started for me because I started keeping track of this last week, essentially, because it came out that Mike Trout was making the move to right field, which, it's a common thing for a center fielder as they get older. Obviously, their defense can't keep up, so they usually shift over to a corner outfielder. The last time I remember this happened, this happens all the time, though. Charlie Blackmon, with the Rockies, he was out there in center. And then moved over to right before he retired. George Springer with the Astros was a center fielder. Signed with the Blue Jays, played a little bit center field. Now he's in right field. So that kind of stuff, happens. So obviously that isn't the biggest change and the biggest deal. But then you start getting the other weird ones Wilson Contreras is apparently moving to first base this year, which is like, okay, catches over the first base. We've seen this with Joe Mauer. We've seen this happen before. It's nothing new, but it's like, okay, let's see what it's like, because obviously position change, especially when you go from catcher to first base, you're seeing the game kind of at a completely different angle. For me growing up, I played a lot of third base, and then towards the end, I played a lot of catcher, and like it was completely different. Managing the field kind of from different positions. So the corner outfield transition can be tricky, so that's always an interesting one. O'Neal Cruz is moving out to center field apparently, and that's an interesting one. Of course, we saw him play center field a little bit last year with some injuries. The Pirates decided to move him out to the center, and he played well. He's a solid defender, and obviously you want to keep his bat healthy, and you want to keep him developing. So be interesting to see that. We saw this kind of with Jazz a couple years ago with the Marlins. He was a second baseman. They moved him out to center. And that one didn't work out as much. He kind of went back to second base and a little bit of third base. That's where he was playing when he got traded from Miami to the Yankees. We know that Clay Holmes is trying to be a starter, and this is one that I always question because, it's one thing for a starter to kind of shape it into a reliever because basically you're just getting a guy that has the distance as a starter but is using him on a shorter-term leash. Well, you have a guy like, Clay Holmes who's been a good closer and has been a reliable reliever, and you're trying to stretch him into 5-6 innings at a time. Can happen, but I'm always more skeptical and more hesitant, debating, Clay Holmes, this kind of player. Like for me, like as a fantasy guy, I wouldn't draft Clay Holmes this year because he's getting the move to starter. If he was a reliever, he'd be on my list, but I don't think I'm going to touch him fantasy-wise, and obviously it's different, but I'm just saying I don't know how much his success is going to transition into a starter. I think it's fun to try out for the Mets, and obviously it's a guy who replaces a guy who you've lost in the offseason, like Luis Severino. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how his decision goes. But then the last one that I saw that kind of made me question a lot was apparently Jose Altuve is moving out to left field this season, or at least something that's they're talking about potentially moving. And obviously Altuve's up there in age. He's, not as spry as he once was. He's going to be 35. And, his second baseman defense hasn't been the best over the last couple of years. But is left field really the best option? It's an interesting option to say the least. When you look at their Fangraphs, he's still listed as a second baseman. And they have Ben Gamel. I didn't even know that guy was still in the league. He's right now listed as the left fielder, which makes sense. I mean, a postseason team doesn't really have a Ben Gamel on the team much, as let alone as a starter. Maybe as a bench guy. But then it's like, who plays second? Is Mauricio Dubon? Dubon can play the outfield. So, I'm a little confused about that one. Interesting to see how that will play out. Maybe they're planning on trading for a second baseman or, moving Pena to short and bringing up a shortstop prospect. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how the position changes go about. Obviously, spring training is when they're going to be trying it out. You'll see Mike Trout in right field. You'll see Altuve in left. You'll see Contreras at first and Clay Holmes as a starter and all these other ones. You'll see Bregman at second. We have that Red Sox debate going on. Devers saying he doesn't want to move out for third base, even though he's defensively kind of a liability at third base and maybe is better off at first or as a DH only. So, some things to question, I guess, going forward. But those are some position changes to watch during spring training. Always fun to see kind of, deals and new changes and seeing new faces and new places for spring training. That's why you watch the game. Moving on here, let's talk about some of the one-year deals that happened. We mentioned the extensions. Like I said, when in the last episode with who's left now that Bregman's gone, who's, going to be around. And yeah, so these deals aren't crazy big, but there are some interesting ones. And these deals are, 1-year deals that are at the major league level. So these guys are on these current teams and are part of the 40-man and will be, granted on the roster. So starting things off, we have Andrew Heaney. He signed a 1-year deal worth $5 million with the Pirates. Justin Turner, turning 40, is signing a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Cubs, with a 10 million mutual option for 2026. He would be 41. So I don't know what how that's gonna work. But if the Cubs and Turner like each other that much and they have a good year together, then that mutual option could get picked up. So who knows there? Justin Turner is a Cub, though. That's a weird one for me. Paul DeJong and Lucas Sims, both being signed by the Nationals. Lucas Sims going to the bullpen on a 1-year, $3 million deal, while Paul DeJong is a 1-year, $1 million deal. Could be a backup shortstop, could be kind of second base. I know they had CJ Abrams last year. I know he got into himself a little bit of trouble towards the end of the season, but he is still their best player. So I guess more of just a backup infielder is what Paul DeJong's role will be there with the Nationals. Maybe that veteran presence. But and the last one here, which I'm the most excited about, is John Means signing a 1-year deal for $1 million with the Guardians and a club option for 2026. I think this move is one of the most underrated moves, possibly of the whole offseason. John Means, an all-star, fantastic pitcher, but what you forget is how good he actually is, because the last couple of years he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. If you remember, he came into the league in 2029, essentially, where he finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, and that was the year he was an all-star. He played 31 games, a 3.6 ERA, a 12-11 record, and this was in the 2019 Baltimore team. So this was before they were good. This was a bad Baltimore team that, he still pitched phenomenally and was a good player. COVID year, 2020. I forget which year it was, but he has a no-hitter in either 2020 or 2021 as they got good. In 2021, he only played 26 games. He went down with the injury. And this is kind of what started this whole injury thing, because in the last 3 years, in 2022, 2023, and 2024, he's only been able to play in 10 games. He's played 2 in 2022, 4 in 2023, and 4 in 2024. But in those 10 games, he's got a 3-2 record and a 2.75 ERA, 52 innings, 33 strikeouts. Those are solid numbers. Last year alone, 4 games, a 2.61 ERA. Yes, there's been, issues with staying healthy, but you look at his career numbers in his 7 years with Baltimore, and obviously there's, a lot of missed time. He's played 78 games. He's got a 3.68 ERA, a 23-26 record. I think John Means is a fantastic pickup, and I think he's going to be a great addition to an already great Cleveland Guardian rotation. You look at Tanner Bybee at the top there. You look at Gavin Williams, Tristan McKenzie. I think the addition of John Means is going to be fantastic, and I believe he is he's coming off an injury, or I'm not sure if he'll be ready for opening day or not. But I mean, that's just a great pickup, I think, when he eventually gets healthy. I know Shane Bieber is coming back from a Tommy John, so I mean, the Guardians, when healthy, have one of the best rotations, but obviously not to the fullest of strengths here. But I'm excited to see what that will look like for John Means and for what it will look like for the Guardians. I'm not going to go into too many other stat lines here for Heaney or DeYoung or anything. Justin Turner is a fun one if you ever look at his baseball reference. A 2-time All-Star, a 2020 World Series champion with the Dodgers. It was the NLCS MVP that year as well, I believe. Or that was not that year, because that was the year against the Red Sox where they lost the World Series in 2018. That was that year. He's been on plenty of teams. People forget he's been around the game for a long time, debuting in 2009 with Baltimore. He's been with the Mets for a long time, but he's become a Dodger in 2014 and spent 9 years with them, and that's where he's had most, if not all, of his major league success. His best seasons, his 2 All-Stars, his 3 top 15 MVP voting finishes, 2016, 17, 18. He was a mainstay, a big veteran presence in those Dodger teams. And, last couple of seasons, been with Boston, been with Toronto, got traded to Seattle last year. So, he's a fun guy. He's going to be joining his, I think, 7th team. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His 7th team with the Cubs. So, good for him. He's back in the NL after a couple years in the AL. And yeah, those are all of our 1 year signings from the week here. And we'll continue on talking about some fun minor league deals. Of course, as we hit spring training now, all of these guys are just going to get minor league deal, minor league deal. Like, MLB teams are going to be throwing these things out like it's candy. And I kind of went through the list, and I picked out some of the fun names that I thought were the most interesting ones. So Mike Clevenger is back with the White Sox. These are all minor league deals, so they're not on the team. They're non-roster invitees to spring training. And depending on how their spring goes, will either stay with the team, head back to free agency, or be in AAA for the team, or AA, wherever they end up getting placed. But I believe most of these guys would be AAA or free agents, or will make the roster come opening day. So just pointing that out, all these are minor league deals. So Mike Clevenger with the White Sox, he's back there. That's fun. Rowdy Tellez with the Mariners. I love me Rowdy Tellez. He's one of my favorite first basemen. Kind of like he's one of those players that's just like, you love him. He's not the best. He's not elite, but you love him. That's how I feel about Rowdy Tellez. Of course, he had a great year with the Brewers a couple years ago. He was a top leader in home runs, I believe. Matt Moore is heading to the Red Sox on a minor league deal, as well as Adam Ottavino. So a couple of old pitchers head Boston's way. Ross Stripling goes to the Royals. That could be fun if he makes the team. He could be a nice little addition to the bullpen potentially. Brendan Rodgers is going to the Astros. So maybe that answers my question. Brendan Rodgers would play second base, and then Altuve moves over to left potentially, depending on how his season goes. Yuli Gurriel, at the spry age of 41, I believe, 42, he's still around and kicking. I said he was probably done and dusted, but no, the Padres pick him up on a minor league deal, and that's interesting because Yu Darvish is there, and if you forget the history between those two, I think you should look it up because I'm not going to speak of it. And the last one here, Amir Garrett with the Blue Jays. And Amir Garrett, if you forget, he's the guy that decided to take on a whole bench in the Reds and Pirates history back in 2019. What a fun year that was. I was Team Reds that year, man. I love Derek Dietrich and some of the guys there, but man, Chris Archer was a Pirate. Who remembers that? What a fun team, fun times those were. So those are all the minor league deals that I picked out of the hat that I thought were fun and the most notable names. Of course, there were plenty of other ones, and you can easily go and start scavenging it out. Scott Alexander with the Rockies over here, I'm seeing. Dylan Floral to the Athletics. Ryan Yarbrough back to the Blue Jays. What do we got here? Anyone else off the top of my head? Yeah, there's plenty of other guys. Chris Flexen to the Cubs on a minor league deal. Trace Thompson to Boston on a minor league deal. So plenty of other ones, but those are the ones I kind of just picked out as like, these are fun guys who were good in the major leagues and maybe will have some more success, but first you got to make the roster. So good luck to all those guys battling some spots in spring. And yeah. The last bit of news to talk about here going forward is that ESPN and MLB are mutually agreeing to opt out of their final 3 years of their TV deal and are no longer national TV partners after this season. So no more games on ESPN. It'll be interesting to see how that looks in playoffs next year. Of course, Sunday Night Baseball always, being broadcasted on ESPN. Not sure how that will look. Will there be a Sunday Night Baseball? It's always weird when it's like these important things, I guess, that do make up a good part of the game, but obviously aren't essential to the game, but, kind of is. I don't know how to feel about it yet. Of course, they are still there. This is the last year, so we still have Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. They'll still be there for playoffs and all this other stuff and et cetera, et cetera. Joe Buck is back in an MLB booth. He's, I think, broadcasting Yankees Brewers opening day, I believe, was the game I saw. And we haven't seen him in the booth in a long time. I'm excited to watch that game and hear his voice because I think he is, a great talent in the broadcast booth. But it'll be interesting to see how the ESPN and MLB, how this separation looks next year when, of course, it will be intact. This year, still as normal in the last couple of years, but let's see how 2026 will look. That'll be a big year for a lot of baseball fans, I think. But that will wrap up this episode. We are heading to the end of the offseason. we're into the month of baseball. Spring training is here, and it's time to talk about divisions. As mentioned at the beginning, I've got my division TOPs coming your way starting next week. So if there is a division that you want to hear me start with, let me know in the comments. Whether you're an AL East fan, an NL West fan, an AL Central fan, wherever you are, and whatever 5 teams you want to hear me talk about first, let me know. And those start next week, so get excited for that. Spring training is here as well, and very much excited for that. So I appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, so much, and I will see you next time.